The fourth Sunday of Advent provides us with an opportunity to already have a bit of a foretaste of Christmas. All the readings we hear on this fourth Sunday feel like Christmas readings. The birth of Jesus taking place in this way, and Joseph getting ready, and Mary getting ready, and the prophecy of Isaiah to Ahaz, which clearly points towards the promised Messiah. All of this is giving us a kind of a unique gift this year specifically, because normally the fourth Sunday of Advent happens and then like 2 or 3 days later it's Christmas. So it's almost like the fourth Sunday of Advent gets very little time and attention. But this year we have a whole week of meditating, thinking, and focusing on the themes of the readings for this fourth Sunday of Advent. Not until next Sunday will we be celebrating Christmas. So let's take this opportunity. Let's use it. When I was meditating on these readings, what kept coming back to me is the foundational problem of our human condition. As it is presented to us here in the readings, pointing towards the birth of Christ, including the Old Testament messages, all of that points towards the fundamental issue we have. And we keep getting in trouble because of this one issue, and that is we forget that God is with us. Or we don't accept that God is with us. We live as God is not near us. This was the problem with the king of the Israelites. We hear about this in the first reading today, King Ahaz. Ahaz was a great king, a great leader, but he forgot that God was with him. And so he tried to do it all. When danger came, when nations took over the northern part of Israel and took people into slavery, the Assyrians in particular, Ahaz was in the south, and now he was worried that they're going to come after Jerusalem and his kingdom, Judah. And so now he is being told by the prophet Isaiah, don't worry, God will deliver you. God is with you. But Ahaz would not believe it. And he would start making concessions with pagan nations all around him, trying to save himself and his people without God. And that's when the prophet Isaiah says, God is with you. Why are you so concerned? Ask for a sign. Ahaz says, I will not ask for a sign. I will not ask for God's sign because I need to do this on my own. And the beautiful line which continues in Prophet Isaiah says, is it too little for you to weary the people that you weary my God also? Another way of saying it is, you frustrate your own people with your lack of faith. Must you frustrate God too with your lack of faith? And then the key line, God will give you a sign. A virgin will give birth to a son whose name shall be Emmanuel, which means God is with you. What's the problem of the human condition? We don't believe that God is with us. Jesus comes and takes on the name of God is with you. Joseph, in the gospel reading, has some problems accepting the reality of what has happened to Mary, his wife. And even though some interpret it in very human ways, in very secular ways, we look at Joseph as perhaps having doubts about Mary's fidelity or Mary's purity. That was never the original interpretation of this text. If we read the fathers of the church, doctors of the church, in the Catholic tradition and in the Protestant tradition, they always look at the interpretation of this text of Joseph not doubting Mary, but doubting himself. He was doubting. He was a righteous man. And he knew the purity and holiness and kindness of Mary. And the ancient interpretation of this text says that Joseph wasn't able to accept the reality of allowing God to be with him, the Messiah to be born under his household. This was overwhelming to him. He didn't know what to do with that. But again, the issue, all the fear, anxiety, and problems that come in our life come from the reality of not allowing God to be with us. Not believing that God is with us. Not allowing to realize that God has come to elevate us. I think so many things could change in our world if we just believed a little bit more in ourselves. That we are capable of being loved, of doing great things, of forgiving, of being kind to our enemies, of sharing of ourselves. So often we only remember the bad things we've done, and we allow that to define who we are. And very often I meet people who are so hard on themselves because they've done bad things. But God is with us. Can we believe that? In spite of our brokenness and sinfulness and the fact that we don't always measure up, that God has chosen to be with us. Emmanuel, God is with you. And that we are capable of great things. That we are capable of holiness, of kindness, of gentleness, of forgiveness, of change. God is with us. Joseph in some ways was doubting himself. And Ahaz in some ways was doubting himself. And all they had to do was not try harder, but not try so hard to do it themselves. But to trust that God was with them. And God was going to purify things. You know, sometimes the best thing we can do when difficulties come our way and we don't know what decision to make is just to stop trying to make a decision. Stop. Spend some time in prayer, in silence. Allow things to settle down. And the decision will come sooner or later, the right decision, when we find peace. When we remove some of the tension and pressure we put on ourselves. Joseph received the answer to his dilemma in a dream, in silence. What happens when we dream, when we sleep? We are not in charge. A miraculous thing is happening. God can speak to us when we are not trying to be in charge so much. And so this week, the last week of the season of Advent, the theme of this week is letting go of ourselves trying to do it all. Allowing God to be with us. Being aware of God's presence near me, in my home, in my relationships, in my own brokenness. And spending time just silently accepting the beautiful gift of Christmas, the gift of God who comes to us, who loves us, who saves us. Amen?
Amen.